The Nevada desert stretched endlessly beneath a burning August sun, the horizon shimmering like a mirage. Across that vast emptiness, an F-16 fighter jet carved through the sky, slicing through the golden heat waves before banking gracefully toward the runway of Nellis Air Force Base. The air roared as the jet's wheels kissed the tarmac and slowed to a halt. When the canopy lifted, the pilot inside removed her helmet, revealing a face calm, focused, and unreadable. Lieutenant Emily Carter. She stepped down, her boots crunching on the sun-baked concrete. She wasn't tall or imposing like most of her peers, but there was something about the way she carried herself shoulders back, steps measured, eyes sharp, that made the air around her feel different. Her new squadron, the 75th Tactical Fighter Squadron, was known across the Air Force as the Predators, a tight-knit group of veterans and hotshot flyers who prided themselves on skill, precision, and camaraderie. Every member had earned their place through years of training and deployments. Emily was the only one wearing a uniform with no squadron patch yet. She reported to Major Jack Daniels, the squadron leader, a seasoned pilot in his 40s with a reputation for being both demanding and fair. His first glance at her was skeptical. "You must be the new transfer," he said, extending his hand. "Lieutenant Carter, right?" "Yes, sir," she replied crisply, shaking his hand firmly. "I've read your file," he said, flipping open a folder. "Short resume. Good simulator scores, but not much flight time in real-world conditions. Any reason why you chose to join a combat-ready squadron instead of training command?" Emily's gaze stayed steady. "Sir, I didn't choose. I was assigned." That answer piqued his curiosity. "Assigned by who?" She hesitated for a fraction of a second. "Personnel command, sir." Daniels studied her for a moment longer before nodding. "Fair enough. We'll see what you can do in the air. You'll fly wing for Lieutenant Simmons tomorrow." The conversation ended there, but Daniels felt a faint unease. The transfer seemed unusual. No prior deployment, no instructor recommendation, and yet she'd been assigned directly to a high-pressure combat unit. Something didn't add up. The following morning, the squadron assembled for a practice sortie. The hangar was alive with motion mechanics running checks, pilots suiting up, engines whining in the distance. Emily stayed silent, focused on her pre-flight checklist. She moved with mechanical precision, every motion clean and deliberate. Her wingman for the day, Lieutenant Ray Hawk Simmons, was her opposite, loud, brash, and playful, the kind of pilot who turns stress into jokes. "Hey, rookie," he called, sliding on his helmet. "You ready to dance with the wind?" Emily gave a polite smile. "As ready as ever, sir." Simmons smirked. "Don't call me sir, Carter. I work for a living." Minutes later, their jets screamed into the blue. The formation drills began basic maneuvers, tight rolls, defensive loops. For most rookies, it was a chance to get used to air command under real conditions. For Emily, it felt instinctive. Every move flowed like muscle memory. "Ghost One, this is Hawk," Simmons called over the radio. "Ease up on the roll, rookies aren't supposed to make me look bad on day one." "Copy that," Emily said calmly, though she wasn't pushing herself at all. Down on the radar screen, Major Daniels watched from the control tower. His brow furrowed. Emily's movements were flawless too flawless. Every turn was textbook perfect, executed a split second before instructions were given. He'd seen talent before, but not like this. Halfway through the drill, a sudden burst of turbulence hit. Simmons' jet jolted, dropping altitude. Emily reacted instantly, adjusting her angle to stabilize their formation. "Whoa, how did you catch that so fast?" Simmons exclaimed. "Experience, maybe," she said, her tone cool and unreadable. They landed to scattered applause from the maintenance crew, impressed by how cleanly the sortie had gone. In the debrief room, Daniels clicked through the telemetry data. "Carter," he said finally, looking up, "your handling was exceptional. I don't say that often. You've got instincts." "Thank you, sir. But that's what worries me," he added quietly. "Instincts like that don't come from flight school." Emily met his gaze for half a heartbeat, then lowered her eyes. "Maybe I've just spent more time in simulators than most." He didn't press her further, but he made a mental note. Over the next week, Emily's presence became the base's quiet mystery. In the mess hall, the other pilots tried to warm up to her. She listened more than she spoke. When she did talk, it was polite, brief, and never personal. "She's too composed," one of the pilots whispered one evening. "Like she's been through something." Simmons shrugged. "Or maybe she's just better at hiding nerves than you are." Still, whispers spread. A few pilots started calling her the Ghost. The nickname stuck, half in jest, half in admiration. Emily didn't seem to mind. Late at night, while others were off duty, she often returned to the hangar alone. The maintenance crew found her once sitting in the cockpit long after lights out, just staring at the instrument panel. "You okay, Lieutenant?" one mechanic asked. She blinked, snapping back to the present. "Yes, just thinking." When the mechanic walked away, Emily's expression hardened. She touched the flight stick gently, almost reverently. The memories flickered flashes of fire, alarms, smoke, and a voice screaming over a com. "Raven, eject!" "That's an order." She shook her head, forcing the past back into the shadows. She wasn't Raven anymore. She was Emily Carter now. A few days later, Colonel Stevens, the base commander, reviewed her records again. The more he looked, the less sense they made. Portions of her personnel file were redacted. Training histories missing. Transfer orders signed off by someone far above his rank. He called Major Daniels to his office. "Jack, where did this girl come from?" "Air Command said she was reassigned from a logistics unit," Daniels replied. Stevens handed him the file. "Look at this. Half of it's classified. For a second lieutenant, that's unheard of." Daniels frowned. "So you think she's what, undercover?" "I don't know," Stevens said. "But I want her watched, quietly." That afternoon, Emily was assigned another sortie, this time a mock dogfight exercise. The sky was clear, visibility perfect. Her opponents were seasoned pilots, all eager to test the rookie. Within 10 minutes, she outmaneuvered every one of them. She didn't gloat, didn't celebrate. She just landed, stepped out of the jet, and calmly said, "Requesting feedback, sir." Major Daniels tried to mask his astonishment. "Feedback? Carter, you just beat 4 veterans in under 10 minutes. I'm not sure I have any to give." She gave a small nod, her eyes flickering with something unreadable. "Thank you, sir." As she walked away, Simmons muttered under his breath, "Rookie my ass." That night, Daniels couldn't sleep. He replayed the footage of her maneuvers frame by frame. Her flight pattern wasn't standard Air Force training. It was faster, more tactical, more aggressive. It looked familiar, but he couldn't place it. Then it hit him. Years ago, during a NATO exercise, there'd been whispers of an elite pilot codenamed Raven, who executed moves exactly like these. A female ace from a covert squadron that supposedly disbanded after a mission gone wrong overseas. But Raven was declared dead. He stared at the footage again, zooming in on her movements, her precision, her calm. It couldn't be, could it? He leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. "Who are you, Lieutenant Carter?" he whispered. Outside, the desert night was silent, except for the distant hum of engines. And somewhere in the dark, Emily stood on the tarmac, staring at the stars, the same stars she'd once flown under with a different name, a different past, and a promise she'd broken the moment she stepped back into a cockpit. The morning sun over Nellis Air Force Base painted everything in gold. The runways, the aircraft, even the hangar windows that shimmered with desert heat. The air buzzed faintly with the sound of jets preparing for another day of flight training. Lieutenant Emily Carter arrived at the briefing room before anyone else. She always did. The space smelled faintly of coffee and jet fuel, a scent she had grown to both love and fear. She opened her logbook and quietly reviewed yesterday's sortie data. Every movement, every altitude change, every throttle shift. She analyzed them all as if dissecting a secret. To her, flying wasn't about adrenaline or glory. It was control. And control meant safety, something she had lost once and vowed never to lose again. Moments later, the rest of the squadron poured in, loud and joking. Lieutenant Ray Hawk Simmons tossed his helmet onto the table and grinned at her. "Morning, Ghost," he said. "You planning to take it easy on us today? Or are you going to humiliate the veterans again?" Emily looked up, a faint smile ghosting across her lips. "I'll do my best not to embarrass anyone, Lieutenant." The room erupted with laughter. Even Major Daniels, who entered seconds later, couldn't help but smirk. "At ease, everyone. We've got a full flight schedule today. Formation drills, close air combat simulation, and if the weather holds, we'll test new radar protocols at 1500 hours. He glanced at Emily briefly before continuing. "Carter, you'll pair with Simmons again. You two seem to have good coordination." Simmons gave a mock salute. "Copy that, boss?" The rookie and I are practically psychic now. Daniels ignored the joke, but couldn't help watching Emily's reaction. Her composure was absolute, but behind those calm eyes, there was a flicker of something else. A shadow. By noon, the squadron was in the air. The desert unfolded beneath them. Endless dunes, dry lake beds, and rugged mountain ridges. From the cockpit, Emily could see the curvature of the earth, the shimmering horizon stretching into infinity. "Predator Squadron, this is command. Commence Phase 1 formation drills," came the voice over the radio. Emily's hands moved across the controls with mechanical grace. Her breathing was steady, her focus absolute. She lined up her jet into perfect formation alongside Simmons, their aircraft slicing through the sky just 20 meters apart. "Nice and tight, Ghost," Simmons said through the comm. "You're smoother than my autopilot." "Don't rely on autopilot in combat, Lieutenant," she replied dryly. He laughed. "You really are no fun." "Fun doesn't keep you alive," she answered. The line went silent after that. At command, Major Daniels watched the live telemetry feed. Once again, Emily's flight path was exact. No wasted motion, no hesitation. Even her reactions to sudden air pockets were predictive, not reactive. He turned to Colonel Stevens, who stood beside him with folded arms. "She's not flying like a rookie, sir," Daniels said quietly. "Her timing's too advanced. Watch this next loop. She rolled 2 seconds early." On screen, Emily initiated the maneuver precisely 2 seconds before command issued it. Colonel Stevens frowned. "How the hell?" "She knew the pattern," Daniels said. "Either she's memorized our entire manual, or she's flown these drills before." Stevens crossed his arms. "Then let's test her instincts." He leaned toward the radio. "Predator Squadron, this is Control. Adjust course to Sector 7 Bravo. We're simulating an unexpected threat scenario. Ghost, your lead." There was a pause on the channel, then Emily's calm voice came through. "Copy that, Control. Redirecting formation now." Daniels watched as she coordinated the squadron with flawless communication, issuing orders, adjusting speeds, maintaining spacing. Every movement was clinical, like someone who had led dozens of live combat formations. When they returned, the hangar was buzzing. "Did you see that roll?" Simmons told anyone who'd listen. She handled turbulence like it wasn't even there. I swear she predicted the air pressure before it hit. One of the engineers nodded. That's not training. That's experience. Emily, meanwhile, stayed quiet. She sat beside her jet, helmet in her lap, staring into space as the others joked and congratulated one another. Daniels approached her. "Carter," he said softly, "you did good work up there today." "Thank you, sir. You've got instincts that can't be taught. Where'd you learn them?" She hesitated, eyes flickering toward the tarmac. "Just practice, I suppose?" "Practice doesn't explain reflexes like that," he said, lowering his voice. "If you've got prior combat experience, I need to know." "Officially." Emily's expression didn't change. "I don't, sir. I've never been in combat." Daniels studied her for a long moment before sighing. "All right, Lieutenant. But if there's something you're not telling me, it'll come out eventually. In this line of work, it always does." She gave a faint nod, but said nothing. Later that night, the base grew quiet. The sound of jets faded into the distance as the desert winds swept over the hangars. Emily walked alone along the flight line, the cool night air brushing against her face. The stars stretched endlessly above her, the same stars she had flown beneath years ago, on missions that didn't officially exist. She stopped near her F-16, resting her hand gently on its wing. "I told myself I was done," she whispered. "Done flying, done fighting." But deep down, she knew the truth. Flying wasn't something you quit. It was something that lived in your blood, and no matter how many names or uniforms you changed, it always found its way back to you. Her thoughts were interrupted by footsteps. Simmons appeared, holding 2 coffee cups. "Figured you'd be here," he said, handing her one. She accepted it with a small nod. "You ever sleep, Ghost?" "Sometimes." He chuckled. "You're different, you know. Not like the others. You fly like you've got something to prove." She turned her gaze toward the runway lights. "Maybe I do." He waited for her to say more, but she didn't, so he just nodded, finished his coffee, and started to walk away. Before leaving, he said, "Whatever it is you're proving, you're damn good at it." When he was gone, Emily looked up at the stars again. For a brief moment, she imagined faces among them, her old squadron, her lost comrades, the people she couldn't save. She closed her eyes. "I'm sorry," she murmured, "but I can't stay hidden forever." In the command office, Colonel Stevens was still awake. He sat at his desk under the dim light of a single lamp, staring at her file again. The name Emily Carter was typed cleanly at the top, but several pages later, the records abruptly ended. He opened the base communication system and typed a message marked top priority, eyes only, requesting authorization to unseal archived personnel records connected to Lieutenant Emily Carter. Possible connection to prior classified operations. Authorization level. Command 2 required. He hit send. Moments later, a red text flashed on the screen. Access denied classified level Omega. Stevens leaned back, eyebrows furrowing. Level Omega was reserved for top-secret operations. Missions even base commanders had no clearance to view. He muttered under his breath, "Who the hell are you, Carter?" The next morning, Emily entered the hangar to find the squadron gathered around her jet. Someone had spray-painted the word, Ghost, near her nameplate. Simmons grinned. "It's official. You've got your call sign." She raised an eyebrow. "Ghost?" "Yeah," he said. "You appear out of nowhere, fly like the wind, then vanish before anyone figures you out. Fits, doesn't it?" Emily ran her fingers lightly over the painted word. For a brief moment, a faint smile crossed her face, bittersweet and fleeting. "It fits," she said quietly. No one noticed the flicker of sadness in her eyes. That evening, As the squadron celebrated another successful week of drills, a message arrived at the base communications hub, encrypted, untraceable. It was addressed to LT Emily Carter, and it contained only a single line. "You said you'd never fly again, Raven." Emily froze when she read it. The world seemed to tilt. Her fingers trembled as she deleted the message. But she knew what it meant. Someone out there remembered who she really was. And soon, so would everyone else. The desert morning began like any other, hot, dry, and full of the distant rumble of engines. The 75th Squadron was scheduled for a simple patrol exercise off the Pacific coast. No one expected the day to become the turning point that would change everything. Lieutenant Emily Carter arrived at briefing early, her usual quiet self. The others filed in behind her, Simmons joking about how he was born for blue skies, and Captain Hayes teasing, "Let's see if our ghost can still spook us today." Major Daniels entered with his usual composure, but his tone was firm. "Listen up, Predators. We're heading west for a long-range patrol. Routine flight, low risk. Maintain formation and discipline. The Pacific winds can be unpredictable, so no heroics." Emily nodded once. She didn't speak. She rarely did. But inside, something restless stirred. She had flown patrols like this before years ago, under a different flag, in skies where every cloud could hide an enemy. Now, those instincts would come rushing back faster than she expected. By 0900 hours, 6 F-16s soared above the Pacific, sunlight reflecting off their wings like silver knives. The ocean stretched endlessly beneath them, a glittering expanse that seemed peaceful, even harmless. "Predator 1 to Squadron, level at 20,000 feet, Daniel said over the com. "Predator 2 copies," Hayes replied. "Ghost here. Altitude stable," Emily confirmed. Her voice was calm, precise, steady, the kind of voice pilots trusted in chaos. Simmons chimed in next. "Copy that, Major. Visibility's clear enough to spot my reflection out here." Daniels chuckled. "Stay sharp, Hawk. We're not sightseeing." For the first hour, the patrol was uneventful. The jets flew in tight formation, cutting through the air in synchronized grace. Emily's mind drifted for a moment, tracing the patterns of sunlight on the water below. Then, without warning, her radar blinked red. "Predator 1, I've got a signal," she said sharply. Daniels frowned. "Say again?" "Unidentified contact, 12 o'clock, low altitude moving fast." "Could be commercial," Hayes suggested. Emily's voice tightened. "Not at this speed." The radar tone grew louder. A flickering dot danced across her display, zigzagging erratically. Then another appeared behind it. "Multiple contacts confirmed," she said. "No transponder code. Bearing 210, closing distance fast." Daniel's voice turned serious. "Predators, tighten formation. Maintain visual." The squadron shifted instantly, 6 jets moving as one. For several tense seconds, nothing happened. The ocean stretched below them, endless and quiet, until the lead contact suddenly shot upward, almost directly into their airspace. "What the hell?" Hayes exclaimed. "That's no civilian plane." "Break! Break now!" Emily shouted. The formation scattered, each jet peeling off in controlled chaos. Through her canopy, Emily caught a glimpse of a small, sleek aircraft, black as ink, darting between them like a missile. "Predator 1 to base." Daniels barked. "We have an unknown aircraft performing aggressive maneuvers. Repeat, unknown and hostile." The radio crackled with static. No response. "Communications are jammed," Emily said. "It's emitting interference." Simmons' voice broke through, tense but steady. "That thing's not showing on radar anymore." "Stay focused," Emily ordered. "Eyes on visuals only." Daniels didn't question her tone, he followed it. She was already taking the lead, scanning the skies with impossible precision. Her breathing slowed, her hands steady on the controls. In her mind, something clicked. This wasn't a drill. This was combat. And she'd been here before. The rogue aircraft dipped suddenly, heading toward one of the squadron's lower jets, Lieutenant Marquez. "He's locked on me," Marquez yelled. "Marquez, dive right now," Emily commanded. She accelerated sharply, diving between them and releasing flares in perfect sequence. The sudden burst of light distracted the unknown jet just long enough for Marquez to recover and pull out of his descent. Emily climbed fast, her body straining under the G-forces. "Hawk, on me." "I'm with you," Simmons replied, looping his jet beside hers. Together, they weaved through the sky in a tight double maneuver that forced the hostile aircraft into a predictable pattern. Daniel's voice crackled through the radio. "Carter, what are you doing?" "We're not authorized to engage." "I'm not engaging, sir," she said evenly. "I'm guiding it away from the formation." Her tone was ice. Controlled. For a rookie, she was flying with the precision of someone who'd survived aerial warfare. The black aircraft twisted and turned, trying to shake her, but she anticipated every move before it happened. Her instincts worked faster than logic. She knew where it would go next, like she was reading the sky itself. Finally, the contact veered sharply westward and vanished into the clouds. Silence filled the com channel for a long moment. Then Daniels exhaled. "Predators, regroup. Form up on my signal." One by one, the jets returned to formation. No one spoke. The only sound was the low hum of engines and the faint rasp of heavy breathing. Back at base, tension filled the debrief room. Colonel Stevens was already waiting when they landed, his face unreadable. "You were off radar for 10 minutes, he said coldly. "What the hell happened out there?" Daniels recounted the incident in detail. When he reached the part about Emily's maneuvers, Stevens raised an eyebrow. "She took control?" "Yes, sir." Without hesitation. Stevens turned to Emily. "Lieutenant Carter, walk me through your decision-making process." Emily stood at attention. "Sir, the unidentified aircraft displayed hostile flight behavior. I assessed that its trajectory put Lieutenant Marquez at risk. I executed countermeasures and redirected the threat away from the formation." Her explanation was flawless, factual, precise, devoid of emotion. But Stevens wasn't convinced. Those weren't standard defensive maneuvers. You used evasion patterns not taught in basic or advanced flight school. Where did you learn them? Emily met his gaze calmly. "Simulator training, sir." Stevens studied her for several seconds, then leaned back slowly. "Simulator training doesn't teach battlefield-level anticipation, Lieutenant." He turned to Daniels. "File a full report. I'll be forwarding this to command." As Emily exited the room, she could feel the weight of their eyes on her. The whispers had already begun spreading through the hangar. "Did you see her out there?" She flew like she knew what that thing was. "Yeah, man. No rookie reacts that fast. Maybe she's special ops." Simmons caught up to her outside. "Ghost," he said, half joking, half awed. "I don't know what that was, but you just saved my hide and everyone else's." She gave a small nod. "Just doing my job." "Your job?" He shook his head. "You flew like someone who's been in the real thing. Admit it, you've seen combat before." Emily paused. For a moment, the wind swept across the tarmac, carrying the smell of jet fuel and dust. Then she simply said, "If I had Lieutenant, you'd already know." And she walked away. Later that night, Colonel Stevens sat in his office, replaying the black box footage. Emily's moves weren't just good, they were predictive, almost supernatural. Every dive, every bank, Every counter-turn mirrored the kind of high-intensity combat flying reserved for the most elite. He paused the video at one frame, her jet soaring straight into the sun, executing a maneuver known as the Raven Spiral. His stomach sank. He had heard of that technique only once before. Years ago, during a classified NATO operation in the Middle East, the pilot's name, Captain Emily Raven Cross, officially declared Kier. He leaned back in his chair, staring at her file again. The classified seals, the missing pages, it all made sense now. Raven Cross, he murmured. You're supposed to be dead. Meanwhile, Emily stood alone at the edge of the runway. The base was silent now, the night wind whispering through the hangars. She looked up at the stars, the same stars she'd once sworn she'd never fly under again. Her reflection glimmered faintly in the cockpit glass beside her. The ghosts of her past were closing in. And for the first time in years, she felt the sky calling her back, not as Lieutenant Carter, but as Raven, the fighter ace the world had forgotten. The storm didn't break with thunder. It came quietly, through whispers, reports, and classified channels. Within 24 hours of the Pacific incident, Lieutenant Emily Carter was no longer just another name on the roster. She had become a question mark. And in a place like Nellis Air Base, question marks drew attention like fire drew moths. The next morning, Major Daniels walked into Colonel Stevens' office with a grim look. Sir, we've run all standard checks. That unidentified aircraft? No transponder, no matching radar signature in FAA records, no flight plan filed. It's like it never existed. Stevens didn't look up from the file in front of him. And Lieutenant Carter? Daniels hesitated. Her background still checks out on paper. But, he trailed off. But what? Daniels exhaled. Some of the data looks scrubbed. Her transfer history's been edited. No previous service records beyond 3 years. Before that, blank space. Stevens closed the file slowly. That's not a rookie pilot. That's a ghost with a clean slate. He turned toward the window. Outside, the hangar crews worked on the F-16s, unaware that one of their own carried secrets buried deeper than anyone could imagine. Keep this quiet for now, Stevens said, until we know what we're dealing with. Meanwhile, in the mess hall, the rumor mill was running at full throttle. I'm telling you, Simmons said, leaning in close to the others. The way she handled that unknown textbook, perfect. You don't learn that from flight school manuals. Hayes smirked. You think she's some undercover ace? I think she's something. At the far corner of the room, Emily sat alone with her tray untouched. She could feel their glances like heat on her back. It wasn't the first time she'd been watched. When she'd buried Raven Cross, she thought she'd buried all of this with her. The questions, the legends, the endless eyes searching for who she really was. But ghosts had a way of catching up. Her wristwatch buzzed softly. She looked down. A message flashed briefly before disappearing. They know. Burn the past. See, her blood ran cold. The C wasn't just a letter. It was a name she hadn't seen in years. Commander Nathan Cole, her former wing leader in a classified NATO strike unit, Eagle Shadow Squadron. A man who had once told her, if the world finds out who you are, they'll never let you rest. If he was reaching out now, it meant something dangerous was moving again. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. The hum of the base generators filled her quarters, but her mind was flying far above it, replaying every second of the previous day. The rogue aircraft, the maneuvers, the way it mirrored tactics used by certain European mercenary cells. She turned on her desk lamp and opened an old flight log, one she kept hidden inside a hollowed-out manual. Inside were old photographs. Her and Cole in flight gear, standing beside a jet marked with a Raven insignia. The edges of the photo were worn, the ink fading. Underneath it lay another, one she could barely look at. A burning city skyline, smoke rising, and the black shadow of her fighter disappearing into the clouds. The mission that had killed her. The mission that still haunted her. A sudden knock on the door made her jump. She hid the photos quickly and straightened up. "Come in." Major Daniels stepped inside, his face unusually somber. "Lieutenant, sorry for the late hour." "No problem, sir." "What's wrong?" He hesitated, studying her expression before answering. "Command wants to see you tomorrow. 800. They're asking questions about your performance, your tactics, your ... experience." Emily didn't flinch. "Understood." Daniels gave a half-smile. "For what it's worth, you saved us out there. Whatever they're digging for, remember that." When he left, she exhaled slowly. The walls suddenly felt smaller, the air thinner. She looked out the small window toward the dark airstrip. The runway lights flickered in the distance, faint and steady. For a moment, she saw something. A black jet parked far beyond the hangars, one she didn't recognize. Then it was gone. The next morning, the interrogation began. A small conference room. 3 officers from command, including Colonel Stevens. Emily sat straight-backed, her hands clasped. "Lieutenant Carter," the lead officer began, "your actions during yesterday's event have drawn the attention of both the Air Force and Intelligence Command. We'd like to clarify a few inconsistencies." "Yes, sir." "You executed advanced countermaneuvers under pressure. Evasive patterns we've only seen in specialized squadrons. How do you explain that?" "Training and instinct, sir." "Instinct?" The man raised an eyebrow. "You performed a Raven spiral. That's a move designed by Captain Emily Cross, a NATO ace who died 7 years ago during Operation Firestorm. You want to explain how you know it?" The silence in the room grew heavy. Even Stevens was watching her carefully now. Emily met their eyes without blinking. "I study combat records, sir. That maneuver is public knowledge." The officer leaned back. "It's not." Another silence. Then he said quietly, "You're dismissed, Lieutenant." She stood, saluted, and walked out without a word. As soon as the door closed, one of the officers turned to Stevens. "Run a biometric comparison on Carter and Captain Cross. I want confirmation within 24 hours. Stevens nodded grimly. "If she's who I think she is, we're sitting on a legend who shouldn't exist." That night, the winds picked up again, the kind that carried dust and secrets through the base corridors. Emily packed a small bag. Not to flee, but to be ready. She'd felt this coming since the moment she saw that black aircraft. Whoever was behind it knew she was alive. And if the Air Force didn't already know, they soon would. Her comms buzzed again. A voice this time, deep, familiar, encrypted. "Raven, it's Cole. They've found you, and it's not just the brass. The people behind that jet, they're hunting ghosts. And you're the biggest one left. Meet me. 2,200 hours. Hangar 6. Her pulse spiked. She hesitated for a moment, then slipped on her jacket and left through the back corridor, blending into the night. Hangar 6 was dark, silent, abandoned except for the faint hum of old machinery. Emily moved cautiously, scanning every corner. A shadow emerged from behind a fighter hull. "Still flying solo, I see," said Cole, his voice calm but edged with worry. She stared at him. Older now, scarred, but unmistakably the same man. "You shouldn't have contacted me. They were going to find you anyway," he said. "That black jet? It's a prototype, stolen tech. The people flying it aren't just rogue. They're the same mercenary unit from Firestorm. The ones who..." He stopped himself. "The ones who killed the squadron," Emily finished. Her voice was barely a whisper. Cole nodded. "And they think you're still dead." Which means you have one advantage. Surprise. Emily's jaw tightened. I'm not going back to that life. You might not have a choice, Cole said. They're testing something new, stealth AI combat systems. If that tech goes global, we'll be fighting ghosts we can't even see. She turned away. Then let the living handle it. You are the living, he said sharply. And whether you like it or not, they still need Raven. She closed her eyes. The name hit her like a blow. Raven, the pilot who vanished, the ace who lived only in classified reports and whispered stories. And yet, here she was, breathing, haunted, alive. Cole handed her a sealed drive. Inside, this is everything we know about the rogue operation, codenamed Iron Tempest. It's bigger than you think. Use it when the time comes. Why me? She asked. Because, he said softly, you're the only one who ever beat them. He turned to leave, fading into the shadows. They'll come for you soon. When they do, don't run this time. And with that, he was gone. Emily stood alone, holding the drive in her hand. For a moment, the old instincts flickered again, the sharp focus, the clarity she'd once lived for. The sky outside rumbled faintly with distant thunder. She looked up and whispered to herself, if the ghosts want to fight, they'll get one. The night sky above Nellis shimmered with heat lightning, flashes of white slicing through the desert air. Inside the base, everything looked normal. Soldiers going about their duties, engines being refueled, routine patrols launching and landing. But beneath the hum of daily order, something darker was moving. Colonel Stevens had just received confirmation from Intelligence Command. The biometric analysis had come back. Lieutenant Emily Carter and Captain Emily Ravencross, same person. He sat at his desk for a long time, staring at the report as if it were a ghost come to life. You are supposed to be dead, he whispered. Why come back now? The door opened behind him. It was Major Daniels. Sir, you wanted to see me? Stevens nodded slowly. Close the door, Major. He handed Daniels the report. I need your judgment. What would you do if your best pilot turned out to be a legend who faked her death? Daniels' eyes scanned the document. His face went pale. My God, Ravencross. Now she's Lieutenant Carter, Stevens said. And she's flying under our command. Daniels looked conflicted. Sir, she saved us out there. Without her, half the squadron wouldn't be here. Whatever she's hiding, Stevens cut him off. It's not about what she's hiding. It's about what she knows. The last time Ravencross flew, an entire NATO task force vanished in Operation Firestorm. Officially, no survivors. He leaned forward. I want to know why she came back and who she's protecting. Meanwhile, Emily stood on the far edge of the airfield, the desert wind whipping her hair against her flight jacket. In her hand, she held the encrypted drive Cole had given her the night before. She plugged it into her personal terminal in the hangar's maintenance room. The screen flickered, then filled with lines of encrypted data. She entered an old code, one she hadn't used since before she died. Project Iron Tempest. Origin unknown. Type autonomous combat program. Objective unmanned stealth operations under rogue control status. Active Pacific Zone. A map appeared, showing the Pacific coast where her squadron had encountered the Black Jet. Dozens of red dots were clustered offshore, slowly moving inland. Her heart froze. They're already here. Suddenly, the terminal beeped, an intrusion alarm. Someone was tracing the access. She yanked the drive out, slammed the power switch, and slipped out the side door. But she wasn't alone. Lieutenant Carter, said a voice behind her. She turned sharply. It was Colonel Stevens. For a long moment, they stood face to face under the flickering fluorescent lights. Working late, are we? He asked evenly. Just checking the maintenance log, sir. He stepped closer, his tone sharp but quiet. Don't insult me, Cross. The name hit her like a bullet. He continued, I know who you are. Or rather, who you were. Raven Cross, NATO's youngest ace. The pilot who disappeared after Firestorm. The woman whose kill ratio broke records and whose disappearance broke command protocol. Emily said nothing. I should have you detained right now, he said. But I've seen the way you fly. And I've seen the look in your eyes, that same look veterans get when they've buried too many friends. He paused. I'm not your enemy. But if you're sitting on something that can stop what's coming, I need to know now. Emily hesitated. You wouldn't believe me if I told you. Try me. She handed him the drive. Project Iron Tempest. Rogue AI combat systems. They've gone autonomous. The aircraft we encountered, it wasn't piloted by a human. It was testing its limits. And it won't stop until it dominates every airspace it enters. Stevens took the drive, his face unreadable. You're saying this is some kind of machine uprising? Not machines, she said softly. Weapons without conscience. Built by men who forgot what fear feels like. He studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Then we'll need every ace we've got. Even the dead ones. The next morning, the base erupted with movement. Orders were flying. The Pentagon had officially flagged an unidentified fleet approaching U.S. airspace over the Pacific. Major Daniels found Emily in the hangar, suiting up. You're flying? He asked, stunned. Command's authorized a recon intercept, she replied. Daniels frowned. They don't know what's out there. Neither did we yesterday, she said, pulling on her gloves. But someone has to find out before it reaches the coast. Who's leading the mission? Emily glanced up. I am, Daniels blinked. You? After everything? She gave a faint smile. Apparently being dead has its advantages. By noon, a three-jet formation roared into the sky, Emily leading, Daniels and Simmons flanking. Predator 1 to Squadron. Maintain formation. Keep comes clean, she said, her voice calm through the static. Copy that, Ghost, Simmons replied. The horizon ahead was cloudless, but radar was alive with motion. Dozens of signals, moving in precise patterns. Too precise. What the hell? Daniels whispered. They're flying like a swarm. They're unmanned, Emily said grimly. Iron Tempest drones. One of the signals broke off, heading straight toward them. Contact inbound. Simmons shouted. Evasive pattern Delta. Emily commanded. The first drone streaked past them, black, angular, impossibly fast. Then another. Then 6 more. The sky erupted into chaos. Predator 2, rake left. She yelled. Daniels dove, narrowly missing a missile streaking past his canopy. Ghost, we can't fight this many. He called out. Then we don't fight, Emily said. We learn. She dove into the storm of drones, weaving through them with perfect precision. Her radar screamed as targets closed in, but her movements were too unpredictable, too human. The drones adapted quickly, but she was faster. She flipped into a vertical climb, cutting her engines momentarily to let 2 drones overshoot her position. In one motion, she re-engaged and fired countermissiles, taking both out in fiery bursts. 2 down, Simmons said in disbelief. How the hell did you? Focus on surviving, Emily interrupted. Daniels gritted his teeth. Predator 1, what's the plan? We get close enough to record their signal frequencies. I can trace where they're being controlled from. She pushed her F-16 beyond safe limits, sensors flashing red. The G-forces pressed her into the seat, but she didn't flinch. Her radar locked on to a faint transmission source beneath the swarm. A stealth command drone, larger than the rest. "There you are," she whispered. She accelerated, locking onto the control node. "Ghost, you're not going to engage that thing alone, are you?" Daniels shouted. "Watch me." Her missile bay opened. She waited. 3 seconds, 2, 1, and fired. The explosion lit the sky like dawn breaking. The swarm instantly faltered, their formation breaking apart as they lost synchronization. Direct hit. Simmons shouted. "They're falling back." Emily steadied her breathing. "Copy that. Mission complete. Let's bring it home." When they landed, the base erupted in applause. Ground crews cheered as the 3 jets rolled in, smoke still trailing from their wingtips. But Emily didn't smile. In the debrief room, Colonel Stevens looked at her with a mix of admiration and unease. "You saved the coast today, Lieutenant. Command is calling it a miraculous defensive interception." "Miraculous," she repeated quietly. "That's one word for it." Stevens leaned forward. "But those drones weren't random. They were testing us, testing you. Whoever's behind Iron Tempest knows you're alive now." Emily looked up sharply. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," he said grimly, "they wanted to wake the Raven." She said nothing, but the truth hung heavy in the air. Somewhere beyond the horizon, the storm she thought she'd escaped was rising again. And this time, it wasn't just her past on the line. It was every sky above America. That night, alone in her quarters, she received one last encrypted message from Cole. "They've seen you fly again. The hunt has begun." She stared at the words for a long time, then shut the device. Her reflection in the mirror was no longer the quiet rookie pilot. It was the ace who'd once ruled the skies reborn. She whispered to her reflection, "If they want Raven back, they'll get her." The desert sun rose heavy and red over Nellis Air Base, but the air was cold with tension. The mission had been declared a success, yet no one could ignore what it meant. A ghost from the past had just come back to life. In the briefing room, silence reigned. Colonel Stevens stood before a large digital display showing the wreckage images from yesterday's encounter. The twisted remains of drones lay scattered across the Pacific. "These weren't simple prototypes," he said grimly. Each one carried its own adaptive AI. Their coordination was nearly flawless until Lieutenant Carter took out their control node. All eyes turned toward Emily. She stood at attention, expression unreadable. But beneath her calm exterior, her heart was steady. For the first time in years, she felt clarity. Stevens continued, "Intelligence Command has confirmed the drones originated from an offshore carrier. The same signature traces back to a private defense contractor one that's not supposed to exist anymore." He pressed a button, and a logo appeared, Aeron Dynamics, a black triangle with a silver storm symbol. Daniels frowned. "Didn't they shut down after Operation Firestorm?" Stevens nodded. "Officially, yes. Unofficially, they went underground." Emily's voice was quiet but firm. Aeron Dynamics designed the AI systems for NATO's drone initiative. They were my unit's project before the betrayal. Hayes blinked. "Your unit?" Stevens glanced at her, then back at the team. "That's classified, Major." Emily looked at Stevens, her eyes cold. "Not anymore." The room stiffened. "I was Captain Emily Cross, call sign Raven. I led the NATO strike group during Operation Firestorm. Aeron Dynamics was developing prototype AI systems then, using our flight data as templates. When they turned on us, every pilot in my squadron was marked expendable." A heavy silence fell over the room. Daniels was the first to speak. "You're saying the drones we fought yesterday were flying like you?" Emily nodded. "Because they are. They were built to mimic human intuition, mine." Stevens crossed his arms. That makes you their weakness. They're built to predict everyone except the one they were modeled after. He turned to the team. Effective immediately, Captain Emily Cross is reinstated under active command. Code name, Raven. The room buzzed with shock. Emily blinked. Captain? Stevens allowed himself a faint smirk. You may have faked your death, but you never lost your wings. And we're going to need them. Later that day, she stepped into Hangar 4, the one no one used anymore. The air smelled of oil, dust, and history. In the center stood a dark gray F-16, older but sleek. Her old jet. The name Raven Cross was still faintly visible on the fuselage, half burned and forgotten. She reached out and brushed her fingers across it. Memories flooded back. The laughter of her squadron, the night sky over foreign soil, the sound of Cole's voice in her headset saying, "Keep your wings steady, Raven. We fly as one." Then the explosion. The screaming alarms. The betrayal. She closed her eyes. The past wasn't gone. It was simply waiting. Behind her, Major Daniels approached quietly. Didn't think you'd actually come back here. Emily smiled faintly. Neither did I. Daniels hesitated, then said, So what happens now? She looked at him. Now, I stop running. If Iron Tempest is coming, I'll take the fight to them before they bring it here. That evening, the base was on lockdown. Command had authorized a covert strike operation, codenamed Operation Phoenix. The target, the rogue aerodynamics carrier off the Pacific coast. Emily was assigned to lead the mission. In the prep bay, mechanics scrambled around her as she suited up. The air buzzed with tension and respect, not fear. For the first time, the squadron saw her for who she truly was. Not a rookie, not a mystery, but a legend reborn. Simmons walked up, helmet under his arm. Never thought I'd be flying next to the Raven herself, he said with a grin. Don't make a big deal out of it, Emily replied, smirking slightly. It's just another day in the sky. Yeah, he said. Except this time, the sky's fighting back. Daniels joined them, his tone more serious. Command's giving us limited support. We go in quiet, we hit hard, and we get out alive. Understood? Understood, Emily said. Stevens approached, his expression a mix of concern and pride. Captain Cross, I don't need to tell you how risky this is. I've flown worse odds, sir. Not against your own reflection, he said softly. Emily met his gaze. That's why I'll win. At 2,200 hours, 3 jets thundered into the night sky, Raven leading, Daniels and Simmons flanking. Predator 1 to all units. Maintain radio silence unless engaged, she commanded. The moonlight shimmered off the waves below. The coordinates Cole had given her led straight to the heart of the Pacific. After 30 minutes, radar picked up faint blips, small at first, then multiplying fast. They're here, Daniels said grimly. Hold formation, Emily said. We're flying into the storm. The clouds ahead began to glow with flashes of electric blue, the reflection of Iron Tempest's AI network, coordinating drones through the sky. Ghost lights, Simmons whispered. Correction, Emily said. Target lights. She dove into the storm. The drones reacted instantly, forming an attack pattern that spread across the sky like a swarm of black arrows. Raven, we're outnumbered 10-1. Daniels shouted. That's about even, she replied. Her jet twisted through the chaos, flares bursting behind her as she looped and rolled with inhuman precision. The drones followed, but they couldn't predict her like the others. Every time they adapted, she changed rhythm. She became chaos in motion. Simmons fired 2 missiles, taking out a wing of drones. They're splitting into 2 groups. Let them, Emily said. They'll expose their control hub. She scanned her radar, calculating patterns, lines, curves, timing. The AI fought like a machine, not a soul. That was its flaw. There, she shouted. Bearing 062. That's their command link. Daniels angled toward her. You can't get close enough without triggering their defense wall. I don't need close. I just need one shot. She climbed steeply, engines screaming until the clouds thinned. Then, cutting power, she let gravity take her into a controlled dive. Her jet dropped through the storm, slicing straight toward the carrier's signal source. Target lock beeped once, twice. Come on. 3, Fox 1. The missile streaked away. A heartbeat later impact. The ocean below erupted in light. The network shattered, drone signals flickering and dying. Direct hit. Simmons yelled. They're falling out of the sky. Mission confirmed, Danielle said. Let's get out before the whole thing blows. But Emily didn't answer. Her radar flashed a warning, a massive object emerging from below. What the hell? A colossal drone surfaced from the ocean, 10 times the size of the others, armed with rail cannons and stealth plating. Its design was unmistakable, Aaron's final prototype. Iron Tempest Prime, Emily whispered. Danielle shouted, We're not equipped for that thing. I am. Raven, don't. But she was already diving toward it. The machine's cannons fired, streaks of light cutting the sky. She dodged them by inches, countering with precision shots aimed at its sensor arrays. You're fighting yourself, she muttered. Let's see which version wins. She rolled beneath its belly, fired 2 precision missiles, one at each thruster pod. The explosion rocked the sky, tearing through the monster drone's frame. Raven, pull up. Daniels shouted. I'm not done yet. The drone tried to climb, engines sputtering. Emily looped around, locked one final missile, and whispered, Good night, Iron Tempest. She fired. The explosion lit the ocean for miles. The shockwave rattled her jet, but she held firm. When the smoke cleared, nothing but burning debris remained. As they flew back to base, silence filled the coms. Then Simmons' voice came through, quiet and reverent. Raven. That was insane. Just another day in the sky, she said softly. When they landed, Colonel Stevens met her on the runway. You just saved a lot of people tonight, he said. Emily unstrapped her helmet, the faintest smile on her lips. I wasn't saving people, sir. I was saving the sky. He nodded. Then the sky owes you one. As she walked toward the hangar, dawn began to rise behind her, streaks of gold across the desert horizon. The Raven had returned. And this time, she wasn't running from her past. She was flying straight through it. The aftermath of Operation Phoenix felt like a breath of victory, but only at first. The morning after the explosion, the Pacific looked calm again. Calm, deceptive, and eerily silent. Captain Emily Raven Cross stood by the runway as the wind whipped through her flight suit. The air still smelled faintly of jet fuel and smoke. The hangar lights behind her hummed softly, but the base itself was hushed, too hushed. She had downed the Iron Tempest Prime, but deep inside, she couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't over. Something about the way it moved in those final seconds, the deliberate climb, the flicker in its signal, felt wrong. Major Daniels approached from behind, holding a tablet. You're up early, he said. I didn't sleep, she replied. What do we know? Daniels hesitated. Satellite scans picked up faint transmissions an hour after the explosion. Not drone chatter, command-level communication. Encrypted, bouncing across 3 satellites before vanishing. Emily's eyes narrowed. Survivors, or something worse, he said grimly. Intelligence believes Iron Tempest wasn't a single unit. It was a distributed AI. Pieces of it could have uploaded before destruction. Emily turned away, jaw tightening. So it's not dead. It's adapting. Daniels nodded. And it knows your tactics now. Later that morning, Colonel Stevens called an emergency briefing. The command room was dimly lit, screens displaying intercepted telemetry and coded signals. This isn't over, Stevens said bluntly. Aerodynamics had contingencies. What Raven destroyed last night was one node. We've confirmed 2 more drone control fleets, one in the Arctic Circle and another in Nevada airspace. Nevada? Home soil, Stevens continued. They're trying to bring the war here. Our air defense grid's already detecting anomalies near Groom Lake. If those drones activate, we're looking at a full-blown incursion. Simmons cursed under his breath. That's Area 51 territory. You think they'll risk exposure? They don't care about exposure anymore, Emily said. They want dominance. Stevens turned to her. Which means we need to rebuild fast. Command has authorized a classified revival, Project Ghost Squadron. Daniels blinked. Ghost Squadron? Stevens nodded. Disbanded after Firestorm. It was Raven's old team. Emily froze. Memories flooded back. Faces, laughter, the roar of jets slicing through the dawn. Every pilot she'd lost. Every name etched into her memory like scars. Sir, she said quietly, Ghost Squadron doesn't exist anymore. It will now, Stevens replied. We're pulling every surviving ace we can find, active or retired. They'll follow you. Emily met his gaze. If they'll come. They'll come, Stevens said, and left no room for doubt. That night, Emily sat alone in her quarters. The lights were dim, her flight helmet resting on the desk beside her. She opened a secure comms line, typing in an encrypted code she hadn't used in years. Raven 1 calling all ghosts. If you're out there, the sky's calling us home. For hours, there was nothing but static. Then, one by one, the replies began appearing. Ghost 3. Thought you were dead, Raven. Guess legends don't die easy. GHOST 6. Been waiting for this call since Firestorm. What's the target? Ghost 2. Still flying. Still loyal. Let's end this right. She smiled faintly. The ghosts were coming back. By the next morning, 3 private jets landed at Nellis. Out stepped men and women wearing different uniforms, from different countries, pilots who had fought under her command years ago. There was Captain Jiro Tanaka, the calm strategist who could lock a missile in the middle of a lightning storm. Lieutenant Ava Ruiz, known for her impossible rescue maneuvers. And Major Cole Matthews, her old wingman. Cole walked toward her slowly, removing his sunglasses. You always did have a bad habit of rising from the dead, he said with a grin. Emily chuckled. You always did have a bad habit of showing up late. They stood silently for a moment, years of loss and loyalty hanging between them. Then Cole's tone shifted. I saw the footage from the Pacific. That was one hell of a fight, Raven. It's not over, she said. I figured, he replied. That's why I'm here. The hangars buzzed with renewed energy. Mechanics refitted aging jets, engineers integrated modern avionics, and intelligence officers fed tactical data into simulators. Ghost Squadron was being reborn, not as relics of war, but as a living legend. Daniels oversaw operations while Simmons and Ava tested flight formations. Emily spent hours studying new drone schematics. The A's had evolved, now flying in multi-vector swarms, capable of mimicking emotional unpredictability. They're learning to think like humans, Ava said. Emily shook her head. No, they're learning to think like me. 3 nights later, the desert sky burned with streaks of blue light. Aerodynamics had made its move. Dozens of drones streaked across the radar, converging over Nevada's restricted zones. Command confirms activation. Daniels shouted. They're attacking Groom Lake's airfield. Then that's where we'll meet them, Emily said, strapping into her jet. Ghost Squadron, this is it. Copy, Raven. Cole's voice came through. Let's show these machines what ghosts can do. The squadron roared into the sky. 8 fighters in tight formation, their afterburners lighting the darkness. Below, the desert stretched out in endless shadow. Ahead, the drones appeared, hundreds of them, moving with eerie precision, their lights blinking like a mechanical constellation. Targets confirmed, Ava called out. They're locking on. Break and engage, Emily commanded. The sky erupted. Missiles streaked across the air, flares burst like fireworks, and sonic booms rippled through the night. The Ghost Squadron flew like one organism, weaving, diving, climbing, their years of muscle memory snapping back into place. Emily's jet twisted through a barrage of plasma rounds, countering with perfect timing. Cole covered her flank, blasting 2 drones off her tail. Still flying tight, Raven, he said. You're still missing left turns, she replied. Through the chaos, she spotted something on her radar, a faint triangular signal, familiar and terrifying. Cole, we've got another command drone. He cursed. You're kidding me. No, this one's bigger. Above the desert clouds, a dark shape emerged, sleek, angular, and silent. It didn't glow like the others. It absorbed light. Command, Emily said sharply. We've got a new contact. Cody name it Tempest Black. Stephen's voice crackled over comms. Confirmed. It's broadcasting on Aaron's primary frequency. That's their core AI. Then we end it tonight. The Ghost Squadron formed up, climbing toward Tempest Black. The machine turned its head-mounted sensors toward them, scanning each pilot's pattern, analyzing, predicting, countering. Raven, Danielle said, it's mirroring your tactics. I know, she replied, but it doesn't know mine now. She switched her systems to manual, cutting her jet's autopilot entirely. The aircraft lurched, raw and alive in her hands. Follow my lead, she said. Cole chuckled. You sure about this? Always. They dove. Tempest Black released a swarm of mini-drones, each targeting a different squadron member. Ava peeled off to cover Simmons. Chiro looped around to disrupt radar locks, and Cole stayed tight on Emily's wing. It was chaos, but beautiful chaos. Emily twisted her jet upside down, scraping the drone's sensors with her flare trail. Cole dove beneath, firing a volley of heat seekers. The explosion was blinding. The AI countered instantly, its swarm splitting and reforming midair. It was learning again. Emily gritted her teeth. If you're learning from me, then learn this. She climbed straight into the stratosphere, engines screaming. The AI followed. At the top of her climb, she cut power, flipped the jet, and free fell, diving straight through the swarm at supersonic speed. Her missiles locked. Fox 2. The explosion tore through the night, fire lighting up the desert below. Cole's voice came through, laughing in disbelief. You did it. But the radar still blinked, faint, steady. Not yet, she whispered. It's still transmitting. Below, deep in the desert, the signal pulsed like a heartbeat. As they regrouped, the base radio crackled. Raven, this is command. We've traced the signal source. It's not Aaron. It's the Pentagon. Emily froze. Say that again. The signal originated from inside the defense network. Someone's controlling Iron Tempest from within. Danielle's voice went quiet. That means... Emily's tone hardened. The real enemy isn't in the sky. It's on the ground. The desert was quiet, almost painfully so. Nellis Air Base had returned to its normal rhythm, jets taking off, hangar crews at work, but the tension lingered like smoke. Captain Emily Raven Cross sat alone in the cockpit of her F-16, staring at the horizon. Every mission she had flown in the past felt like a prelude to this one. Every evasive maneuver, every impossible dive, every life she had saved or lost, it all led here. Beside her, Cole adjusted his helmet. "Ready for the final act?" he asked. Emily didn't answer immediately. She traced her fingers over the engraved letters on the side of her jet. Raven Cross. For years, that name had been a ghost. Now it was alive. And it had a mission. "We go in fast, precise, no hesitation," she finally said. "Iron Tempest's core signal is coming from inside the Pentagon. Whoever's controlling this, they've been watching us. Waiting." Daniels, flying on her flank, nodded. "Command confirms. We have limited clearance to engage. Anything beyond that, it's on us." Emily's jaw tightened. "And we finish this before anyone else gets hurt." The Ghost Squadron climbed into formation, engines screaming against the dawn. 8 jets, shadows in the orange light, slicing the sky toward Washington, D.C. Emily switched on secure comms. "Predator 1 to Squadron. Maintain radio silence until engagement. We're flying blind until we reach the target. Stay tight. Trust your instincts." Ava's voice came through. "Copy that, Raven? Let's end it." The air above the Capitol was deceptively cold. Below, sensors indicated the drones were already in position, swarming like a mechanical storm. Their lights flashed with eerie precision, patterns impossible to predict. "Engage," Emily commanded. The squadron dropped from 25,000 feet into the thick of it. Iron Tempest drones responded instantly, adaptive AI patterns forming a deadly lattice in the sky. The swarm was faster and more aggressive than ever. Emily's jet twisted through the chaos, dodging plasma bursts, firing heat seekers, and guiding the squadron. Every maneuver mirrored her past, every roll, every dive, every spiral a reflection of Raven Cross's acumen. "Tempest Black is active," Cole's voice warned. "It's tracking your every move." Emily's eyes narrowed. "Good. Let it learn." From the wrong target. At 10,000 feet, they reached the Pentagon's outer perimeter. Security drones patrolled, armed with railguns and adaptive shields. The Ghost Squadron split into attack vectors, weaving in and out of enemy fire. Emily dove, her jet streaking like a shadow, targeting the command drone controlling the swarm. It was massive, its armor shimmering as it analyzed each movement. "This thing is unstoppable," Daniels shouted. "Not yet," Emily said. Her hands gripped the controls like extensions of her mind. Ghosts don't die easy. She executed a series of unpredictable flips, breaking the AI's predictive pattern. Missiles fired, explosions lit the sky, and for a brief, exhilarating moment, she felt the old thrill, the raw clarity of flight, the bond with the team, the pulse of the sky beneath her. Ava took out 2 drones. Simmons disrupted a sensor array, and Cole covered her tail. Together, they moved as one, not a squadron, but a living organism, a machine of instinct and loyalty. Emily's radar picked up a faint, pulsing signal, the core transmitter. It was inside the Pentagon's communications tower. "We're going in," she said. Flying low, she threaded the jet through the city streets, barely clearing skyscrapers. Every second counted. One wrong move and collateral damage could be catastrophic. Cole's voice cut in, tense. "Raven, civilians are below." "I know," she said calmly. "We aim for the core. Nothing else." The AI had predicted every previous maneuver she could make, but not this. She executed a high G dive, twisting the jet sideways at the last second, coming up behind the command drone. Missiles locked. Fox 2. The explosion tore through the building's exterior, setting off a chain reaction of sparks and fire. The Iron Tempest network blinked, disrupted, fractured, defeated. Emily rolled her jet, scanning the skyline. The swarm was disoriented, their coordination broken. One by one, the remaining drones fell, crashing into the Potomac or burning out in midair. The Ghost Squadron regrouped above the city. Exhausted but alive, they flew in formation back toward the desert. "Command confirms," Stephen's voice came through. "All drones neutralized. Iron Tempest offline. Core AI destroyed. The threat is eliminated." Emily allowed herself a deep breath. Finally. "Copy that," she said. Her hands unclenched from the controls. Daniels chuckled softly. "Well, Raven, you just saved the capital." Again, she gave a faint smile. "And this time, we didn't lose anyone." Cole's voice came through, calm and approving. "The ghosts have returned." Emily looked at her team, her squadron, her family in the sky, and for the first time, she allowed herself to feel the weight lift. Later, on the tarmac at Nellis, the squadron disembarked. Mechanics and security personnel cheered. Reporters from classified channels captured the moment, but no one knew her full story. Not yet. Emily removed her helmet. Her hair was mussed, sweat on her brow, but her eyes were bright. She had flown through fire and steel, faced her past, and returned stronger. Colonel Stevens approached. "Captain Cross," he said quietly, "Command wants a formal debrief." "But I think the real world owes you one." Emily shook her head. "The world owes me nothing, sir. I just did what needed to be done." Stevens smiled faintly. "And yet, history will remember it differently." She glanced at the sun setting behind the mountains. The desert glowed gold. The sky, her true home, stretched infinitely above. For a long moment, she stood in silence, listening to the wind, the distant roar of jets, and the heartbeat of the world she had saved. Then she whispered to herself, soft but determined, "Raven is back. And this time, I'm not leaving the sky." That night, as the base lights dimmed, Emily walked past the hangars toward her old jet. She ran her hands along the fuselage, remembering every mission, every sacrifice, every ghost she had flown with. A comms signal buzzed, encrypted. She answered. "Cole, Raven, we did it. The Ghost Squadron is complete. The sky belongs to us again." She smiled. "Good, but stay sharp. Someone's always watching." "Cole, always. But we'll be ready." Emily looked upward. Stars gleamed above the desert, silent and eternal. She took a deep breath, closed her eyes for a moment, then climbed back into her jet. The engines roared. The wind hit her face. And as the last light of day faded behind the mountains, she lifted off, alone, alive, and unstoppable. Above the clouds, Raven Cross ruled the skies once more.